Meantime, let's check today's top stories and distributes flow for Masterchef's Jock Zonfrillo. His family is making the heartbreaking trip home from Italy. His wife Lauren and their two young children were there on holidays when they learned of his sudden passing. Jock had flown home ahead of them because of his Masterchef commitments. Fellow Masterchef judges Melissa Leong and Andy Allen have also paid tribute to Jock today. Andy broke his silence with a touching Instagram post. He wrote, "Sure, you've taught me so much about food, but it's the lessons I learned about what it means to be a great father, husband and friend that I'll take away from our time being together. Life will never be the same without you." In other news, recreational vapes will be banned under the biggest smoking reform in a decade. A federal government crackdown will prohibit the importation of non-prescription vapes. Under new rules, vapes will only be sold in pharmacies, in pharmaceutical-like packaging.
Just like they did with smoking, let's be very clear about this. Big Tobacco has taken another addictive product, wrapped it in shiny packaging, added sweet flavours to create a new generation of nicotine addicts.
Tax on tobacco products will also rise by 5% from September. Australian boxer Harry Garside has been charged with assault over an alleged domestic violence incident. He was arrested at Sydney Airport on his return from South Africa, where he'd taken part in I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. Garside's ex-girlfriend alleges Garside elbowed her in the face and spat on her in March. He's been released on bail, telling reporters he'll fight the charge. And there's been a banana drama at a gallery in South Korea. A student has eaten a $120,000 artwork of a banana taped to a wall. He was hungry. He munched away in front of shocked onlookers and even reattached the banana skin when he was finished. He's not the first to think the work was ripe for the picking. David DeTuna ate the first edition banana at a Miami gallery in 2019, but he argued it was performance art, not vandalism. I mean, you've only got about 4 days in a banana.
I mean, at least there's an argument there. That student knew what he was doing. I thought, oh, maybe he's accidentally eaten the banana. But no, and he just stood there and was performing. But
that's why it's performance art.
Well, yeah, but the real question is, why is that installation worth $120,000? It's a banana taped to a wall.
And what am I doing with the bananas in my pantry? Just sitting there waiting to be eaten.
Going
They're a cold mine.
That's so much money. Remember when there was a storm in North Queensland and bananas were like close to that?
They almost got
Yeah, so that was performance art. Yeah. Also, when I've had a few beers, order Uber Eats late at night, that's also performance art.
After years of campaigning, Tasmania's finally getting its own AFL team. Club presidents have signed off on the league's plan to add a 19th franchise to the competition. The deal was subject to Tassie building a new stadium. That's happening thanks to $240 million from the federal government. The Tassie team will debut in either the 2027 or 2028 season.
Joining us now is former Collingwood president and presenter Eddie McGuire. Now, not so long ago, you would have been in the seat having a vote. This is a great day for Tassie. It's a great day for the world. You'd have voted for this, wouldn't you, Ed?
Yeah, but it's an interesting situation at the moment. It's one thing voting for free beer. It's also making sure that the knock-on effect doesn't come. So it's great today, and tomorrow will be a bit like buying a boat. The best day if you're having a boat is when you buy it, and the next best day is when you sell it.
So you reckon the next best day will be when they...
Well, no, I'm really up for it, and I'm really supportive. But I'm getting a lot of word from rank and file people in Tasmania who are now looking at this, and the quote civil unrest comes up. Now I go, you're kidding, aren't you? And there are people who are absolutely dead set against this splitting the north and the south of Tasmania, that they're saying that this is going to be a citadel for the opposite of what we need, which is public housing. Now, I say there's two different budgets for these types of things. But Tasmania, I think, really have to get behind this. This is the moment in time. The fact that the AFL have been able to corral those 18 presidents to say, right, all right, we're unanimous, which is the most unanimous vote you'll get, but everyone's in.
Oh, you think people...
Oh, no, there's plenty who still think there's got plenty of hairs on it, but everyone's up and they're going, right, OK, let's go. But what we really need now is for Tasmania to come together and make this a positive thing all round and not break into factions because, as I said, there's enough on this to... It won't fall over, but it needs to have everything going. You need to be kicking with a 10-goal wind on this one.
10-goal wind?
Yeah, you do. Because...
Mate, that's a cyclone. People have to bunker down.
Not in Tasmania without a roof, I can promise you.
Well, Eddie, maybe they just need the right club president. And Nick Revolt has actually suggested you possibly to be the president of the new Tassie club.
Wow.
Would you want to do it? And could they afford you, Eddie? Could they afford you?
Well, I'd asked for 3 times the money I got at Collingwood, which was zero. So there's no problem with that. If you ask, no, I don't know. I saw this afternoon Nick saying that. No, look, I want to support the Tasmania thing. I think as well, don't forget, we've got to spend, we being the AFL fraternity, have got to put double the effort into New South Wales and Queensland. That's where the growth is going to be. Tasmania is a great thing because it's a traditional state and we can't leave Tasmania behind anymore. So it's great that that's happening. But the money and the war is in Brisbane and in Sydney, and particularly with the Olympic Games going up. The money that the Tasmanian government are putting up and what the federal government is sideshow time compared to what's going into the Olympic Games in Queensland. So I'm not worried about the federal government putting money into Tassie for Australian rules football. But, you know, the whole game itself, there's a lot of challenges there. Get it right and it'll be unbelievable.
Do you foresee
but there's
there
going to be a
being
few bumps.
any issue, well, some of those bumps, do you foresee there being any issues actually attracting the players down
Well, that's
to Tassie?
always... Look, if we can't get them to go to the Gold Coast, you know, it's another thing going
No,
down.
we can get them to go there. They just don't want to play footy.
Don't want to stay. Exactly. Yeah. Well, there's reasons. It's other than schoolies, of course. But that's the point I'm trying to make is Tasmania now has to embrace this, and it's not just about having a team on a Saturday afternoon. And I've always said this needs to be like Noma. For tourism as much as anything else. It can't look like New Norfolk versus Penguin in the old days. It's got to be 2050, not 1950. And I just hope that people embrace that and don't resile against it. I'm hearing some bad vibes coming out of Tassie on some of these things, on some parts, and huge excitement on the other. So I always sort of head towards the huge excitement side of things, but with an eye to the difficulties that are going to be there. So, yeah, it's going to need some people who know what's going on because don't forget, the teams who are already in the competition at the bottom of the ladder, once those draft picks go, you're in a world of pain. When Gold Coast and the GWS came in, there were teams who didn't look like it for 10 years. And, you know, you don't want to be on that downward side where maybe the Tigers are heading at the moment.
Well, funny you say that because Richmond lost a lot of those draft picks to GWS and then 3 premierships later it was fine.
Exactly.
You've struggled.
Well, I hope so. But look, that's the downside of it. The upside is tomorrow is going to be one of the greatest days in the history of Tasmania, and particularly in their sporting history. And the AFL have reached out, and Gil McLaughlin's farewell lap, which is going like a Cliff Young run to Tasmania from Melbourne to Sydney, but. This is a huge day tomorrow, and I just really, in my heart of hearts, I want Tasmania to reach out. Now, I know they've got their issues, their social issues, that can't be swept away, but at the same time, don't use this as a lightning rod to use it to protest against things that have got nothing to do with footy.
Now, quickly before we go, everyone wants to know about the name. They can't use Tassie Tigers. Tassie Devils trademarked. What could they call it?
Well, the Fremantle Dockers was trademarked to Levi's back in the day and was a payment that went that way.
Oh, so
I would have thought Tasmania might have an argument back to Warner Brothers that Tassie Devils actually might have started in Tasmania. But I don't know about the Devils anyway, to be honest.
It's too close to the Demons.
We've got the Demons. We've got the Demons already. I know what Liz Patterson would have called them, but I don't think we can say that.
The Demons play the Devils. It's Satan round. It'd be crazy.
What do you want to have? Devils.
What about that?
Devils is great. You can't have the Tigers, can you?
No, definitely not.
Have the
Well,
Tigers.
that depends, unless you want to be like Port Adelaide, who want to have Collingwood.
I
jump
just
every
hope
5
this
minutes.
Tassie team wears black and white stripes.
Oh, now we're starting to
The
ask.
Tassie Tigers.
Tassie Magpies. Got a bit of a
I think the
ring to it.
Devils is the obvious one, isn't it?
It's got it.
Eddie, we'll have to
That's
leave it
right,
there.
I'll
Thank
get
you so much for popping
Thanks,
in.
guys. Love it.
A shock move by the Reserve Bank. The board has announced an increase of 25 basis points, lifting rates to 3.85%. That pushes the cash rate to an 11-year high and the 11th increase in the space of 12 months. Most analysts, even the big four banks, had expected the RBA to keep rates on hold.
I think that the rate rise is really a pretty stark, pretty brutal reminder of the difficult economic conditions that we confront as we finalise the budget.
And economist Chris Richardson joins us now. Chris, a lot of economists were shocked by this news. Did you see it coming?
I'd like to say I did, but it was a bit of a shock, not just to economists, but to markets. And a shock is a problem. We just had a review of the Reserve Bank that said it needs to communicate better. But today it again communicated, with all the sensitivity of a teaspoon, basically. You don't want to surprise Australians when they've never borrowed as much as this and when you've had as bigger increase in interest rates as we've had.
I know what you're saying, but I feel like I've known some very sensitive teaspoons. We've heard, though, over the period of the last probably, month, that inflation's slowing, which I guess is encouraging. Does the fact that the rate has gone up today mean that inflation actually isn't under control?
No. So inflation is slowing. It's slowing in Australia. The fight against inflation is a world fight. It's being won all around the world, and the rest of the world is 3 or 6 months ahead of us. So, there's a lot of good news in the pipeline for inflation. To be fair to the Reserve Bank, though, it is still way above where the bank promises the Australian people it will average over time. They're worried that inflation is popping up in some new areas. It's a bit like a bushfire, so they worry more when it does that. So they've given one more swing of the baseball bat.
Times are really tough at the moment for so many people, Chris. Do you think that there's some positive news in this? Have we finally seen the end of this series of hikes?
I would say yes. I think the Reserve Bank is now done and dusted. At the very least, right, it has changed the cost of money, interest rates, so much and so fast that it should pause for some time while it sees what's happening. You remember, the Australian economy is only beginning to slow as a result of these interest rate rises. We know almost 1 million loans at cheap rates taken out during COVID. They'll reset as people have to go to refinance them. That says the Reserve Bank waits and watches from here and is probably done.
What are they waiting for, Chris? Are we going to see some budget relief or some kind of help for homeowners next week in the budget? Do you think there's any coming?
There'll be a bit, and we've been hearing the leaks, older job seekers, something for single mothers we've known for a while around help for electricity bills. By and large, though, there's not big bucks in that. And the real problem for a government that has a population worried about a cost of living crisis is the government gives us too much money, we'll spend it, and that creates more inflation. And that brings the Reserve Bank back off the bench. So the government will do what it can, but chances are it's not going to be big.
Chris, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks.
And 1,000 new e-scooters are about to hit the streets of Melbourne, which is now the e-scooter capital of the world. Last month, it had the highest number of trips across 53 cities globally. More than 3.7 million scooter trips were made in the past year. And research shows nearly 45% of those trips replaced a car journey.
I don't like it.
No,
I don't like it.
Is that because you have the bike phobia?
Well, yes. I'm also not great on scooters, surprisingly. But for me, it's the speed of them. I've nearly been taken out by e-scooters. They zoom. I was talking to some people over the weekend who had them, and I was like, how fast do these things go? And they said 70 kilometres an hour they can go up to. Of course, you're not meant to ride them that fast, but you can.
Aren't they meant to be limited to like 12 or 15
Yeah,
or something?
I'm sure the ones that are freely available, those Lime scooters or whatever, those ones are probably, they have a limit on there. But if you have privately owned e-scooters now, you're meant to follow the rules that are enforced, but you can go over.
70
That is
on
dangerous.
that.
Yeah.
Dangerous.
That's outrageous.
Do you remember when the O-bikes were in Melbourne and everyone threw them in the Yarra? Like, why
Up
can't
trees
we
as well?
up trees? But they threw them in places. Let's start doing it with the scooters.
No, that is not an endorsed message.
It's installation art.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm going to eat a scooter.